So, delighted today to be talking to Veronica Bailey, who runs Fairwise Travel on Hungerford High Street. So, hello, Veronica. This must be an incredibly challenging time for you.
Hi, Penny. Yes, incredibly difficult. Lots of queries from worried travellers, and also all the money is going in one direction.
Yes.
Out.
Yes, I can imagine. So, have you still got a few clients who are abroad at the moment?
Very few, but yes, we do still have some abroad. So keeping in touch, making sure that they know what the situations are for getting home and everything else, obviously absolutely vital.
Yes, and obviously there are consulates in whatever country they're in and airlines, and it must be such a relief for them to know that you've got their back, basically.
Yes, I think so. The lady who's just come back from Australia was certainly very pleased to know that there was somebody batting for her on this side when all the flights had dried up and Qantas didn't want to know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then there's all travel insurance and goodness knows what. I mean, the goalposts are probably changing every day. So it's just a question of keeping people calm, I should think.
Mostly, as you say, things change virtually on a daily basis. And so long as people are aware and keep up to date with the situation in the country they're in, they will probably be quite okay. Keeping in touch with the local High Commission is one of the main things, and making sure that your insurance extends as far as you're going to stay away.
Yes. And I mean, I don't know whether insurance covers the extra costs that people are incurring due to the pandemic. I guess it depends from policy to policy.
Yes, probably. Sadly, mostly not those sort of things. Some policies equally haven't been covering anything to do with the pandemic because they say that it is force majeure and it's outside the scope of the insurance. Hence a good warning to everybody to make sure that you've got the best cover you possibly can have.
Yes, even if it's more expensive up front, it's worth it, isn't it? In a situation like this.
Yes, especially if you have to buy a very expensive ticket to get back.
Absolutely.
Fair.
Yeah. And I know that you're a very experienced travel agent and you've seen all the volcanic ash crises and other pandemics on cruise liners and stuff, but this obviously eclipses anything that's happened before.
Absolutely, because it's not just what's happening where we are, it's happening worldwide. The ash cloud really only affected Europe and North America, and certainly nothing like this where we can't rely on other people to get us through. We have to look after ourselves.
Yeah. So in terms of kind of the short and long-term future, I mean, you told, I mean, Europe is starting to open up a little bit. I gather that hotels are starting to open in Germany and trains are starting to run in Italy. But what is travel going to look like, do you think, in the short term? Not much fun.
No. There are lots of initiatives by airlines and other forms of transport, buses and so on, to make sure that people are as safe as they possibly can be. And during the down times when actual aircraft haven't been flying, they have been deep cleaned, same with the cruise ships. So all in all, when we do go back to travelling, I think the actual infrastructure, if you like, is going to be a lot safer. Everybody will have had a chance to make really important changes to the way that they operate and to the hygiene and personal sanitation for everybody on board. So,
but obviously with a train or a plane, you know, people are crammed in like sardines normally, and I know that Ryanair have said they're not going to fly if they have to have the middle seat empty. It's just obviously not worth it for them.
Yes, I mean, that very much depends on the business model of the airline concerned. People like Delta are guaranteeing that the business, that the middle seat won't be occupied, and they have specific policies in place for allocating business and first class seats so that there is plenty of space around each passenger. At the moment, when flights are fairly empty, it's much easier.
Because in the airport, the guy announced that said it would be a 1 kilometre long queue if people had to be 2 metres apart queuing up to board.
I think that was a little bit of exaggeration, but I understand what he means. If you're going to fill up an A380, obviously some passengers will actually be in family groups and so on, so it's not going to be individuals stretched all the way out to Hounslow. But
and do you think that people will have to wear face masks if they want to get on a plane or a train for the rest of the year, probably?
Certainly if they're going abroad, and very probably for certain journeys within the UK as well. Apart from anything else, I suspect that it gives confidence to travellers as well as to the people operating the flights and trains.
Yes.
Most airline staff are wearing masks. A lot are wearing full visors.
Gosh.
A lot are not serving meals or drinks, just to minimise any sort of touch.
Because in a plane, you've got the air circulation issue as well, haven't you?
Yes. The vast majority of airlines have really ramped up their HEPA filtration so that the air you breathe is going to be much better filtered.
Oh, not just in first class. That will apply to economy seats as well, will it?
No, throughout the plane.
Yeah. We're just seeing online here, there's a story about a packed Aer Lingus flight from Belfast to Heathrow. And people are quite shocked that there's all the middle rows are full. You know, it just looks like a normal flight. So it's obviously airline by airline.
Yes, unfortunately, it is working that way. I think it's an unfortunate thing for Aer Lingus to have done, but because they have cancelled a great many of their services, and especially to regional airports, I suspect they thought that this was the only way to meet the customer demand.
But how is this jiving with government guidelines that the rest of us have got to stay at home? This seems to completely undermine what the rest of the population is doing at the moment. You just need one person on the flight, and unless they were tested before they got on the flight and when they get off, and you know, it just seems real double standard to me.
Yes, I cannot agree more, actually. I was horrified when I saw it, and I'm very dismayed that none of our airports appear to be doing anything in the way of testing. Dubai, which is Emirates' hub, have a very good testing system, 10 minutes for a blood test, and they know which passengers can fly and which can't.
Brian's just taken over for a bit. Penny's just had to go and get a charger. I was just wondering, looking at the sort of bigger picture of airline travel and travel generally, is in 2018 there were 4.4 billion air journeys made around the world, and this was more than double what it was 15 years before, in 2004. I mean, it's a colossal number. That means on average about one person in 2 people out of 3 in the world made at least one journey. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are making 50. I mean, do you think it will ever get back to that level again?
It may get slowly in that direction, but it certainly won't get there anytime soon. Not because there isn't a demand, but because people will look at other ways of doing the sort of things that they want to do.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of business has been conducted very successfully over the internet. People will find that they don't have to make those journeys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one thing that is clear to a lot of people, I think now, is that it isn't necessary to be physically in the same place as somebody else in order to have a conversation with them.
Or even to see them. Yeah.
Or even to see them on Zoom. But I mean, it could be that the airline statistics will be dropping down the actual number of journeys to kind of the levels of 20 or 25 years ago, possibly the 2020 figures. And because there's a huge number of businesses which indirectly depend upon the movement of people from one place to another on a regular basis, whether it's taxis or hotels or incoming tour operators. And obviously, the question is how you're obviously in a bit of a you're not disinterested in this, but I mean, the question of whether or not we should be travelling around as much as we are is another point. But I mean, it's likely to have an absolutely ruinous effect on the economies of some countries, isn't it? Some which rely, it is for them, tourism is the biggest single earner of foreign exchange.
Very much so, which is why at the moment most of the hoteliers in the Caribbean are literally appealing for customers to make bookings and so on, because their economies, by and large, rely solely on tourism.
Yeah, there's some which is more than 50% of the revenue comes from tourism, probably even higher figures than that. I mean, this is an awful problem where, as we start to come out of this, which in this country, at least for the first wave, I'm afraid, I personally think, is that people are starting to look forward to reopening some of their normal patterns of behaviour. But the trouble is that exactly travel is probably the best single way of rebooting the whole infection. And yet, as you say, there are millions and millions and millions of people in the world who are going to lose their livelihood or suffer really badly if we don't travel. So it's a really awkward conundrum.
It is.
Yeah.
Making it safe, making it equally affordable. And of course, at the moment, there are huge numbers of people who are holding vouchers for future travel with both cruise companies and airlines and tour operators, who will all be looking to spend those within the next 1, 2, or up to 3 years, depending on who they booked with originally.
So it's deferring the income. Those companies will have to honour those vouchers or not, and that's going to reduce their, that's money that they've already got. So it's not revenue they're going to get in the future from the actual travelling that's happening. The other sad story I've heard is increase in poaching in Africa because of the lack of tourism. There isn't the money to pay enough gamekeepers to protect the wildlife, so the poachers are really taking advantage of it.
Very much so, sadly, especially in Kenya and in Botswana. So there are a lot of very brave people who are looking after gorillas and rhinos and trying to keep them safe. But until the tourists can go back and spend the money.
So with cruise ships, I mean, for some people, they think the thought of getting on a huge boat with all those people would be the last thing I ever want to do. But I think the cruise industry have got experience with health scares like this, and maybe they have medical staff on board. It's not such a bad option if you want to have a holiday.
No, in many ways, it's a very good option in the sense that it's quite possible for cruise lines to check everybody before they board, make sure there's no health issues there. And once on board, they're very used to sanitizing the entire ship. And whilst most have not been sailing and probably won't sail until at least the 1st of July and possibly not until the 1st of August, they will be deep cleaned. Something very similar to a sort of nebulizer, a fogging system is used to get into all the soft furnishings as well.
Okay.
So I think for those people who look on it from that point of view, it may turn out to be one of the safer ways to travel.
I mean, the trouble is that the cruise industry, of course, it constantly appeared in a rather negative way in the early days because some of the cruise ships had infection rates which were comparable to those of countries and were actually appearing on some of the charts. Which was the one that docked in Australia and everybody was allowed to go?
Absolutely.
The Ruby.
Yes, the Ruby Princess.
I mean,
and there is a court case going on about that.
I mean, to my mind, it seems like the Australian government was the ones at fault there. What do you think?
Quite possibly. I wouldn't be able to say. Knowing,
but obviously that's
the
a
actual
PR
nitty-gritty was.
It's a PR problem the cruise industry has obviously got to combat. But I can see what you're saying is that you can be. It's easier to be socially distanced on a cruise ship than it is on an aeroplane or a train or a bus or even a taxi. It's, I suppose, the other problem is that it appeals to exactly the demographic that might be considered to be at most risk.
To a certain extent, it does, in that the sort of traditional cruiser is older.
Mm-hmm.
The very large destination cruise ships, which specialise in sort of family cruising and so on, I suspect they may have more of a problem in retrieving their passengers, as it were. I think the older generation and the smaller ships will probably benefit.
What was that huge cruise ship that was built? The one that was about the size of it was about the size of Leicestershire. It was launched about 4, 5, 6 years ago. Absolutely massive. What was that called?
Well, there are quite a number of those.
Yes, I said there are.
Very surprisingly.
Really, Leviathan type things. I mean, would you think those are going to survive? I mean, what are they going to be turned into otherwise? What would you do with a cruise ship of that size if you were Cunard or Royal Princess?
Right. Yes, I would be having a long, hard look at them.
Yeah.
I suspect that they may turn them as one has already been turned into basically a timeshare where people actually live on board permanently.
Blimey.
Goodness gracious. Wow.
Gosh.
There are all sorts of things you see that you
Yeah.
can do.
Floating hospital ship, perhaps.
Yeah.
But,
So, can I? The good news is perhaps for the UK tourism market. Do you think people are going to stay at home more?
Yes, so long as people have the confidence to book the accommodation and are happy that it's going to be clean and safe, then I think we will see a real blossoming of UK tourism, and probably to the more isolated areas, so that people will try things like the Wild Atlantic Way, or to go to the north of Scotland and look at the islands.
But I mean, you've worked in the travel industry for a long time, and I was involved in it a bit earlier, publishing capacity. But there's obviously over the last 30, 40 years, since probably, I don't know, the days of Freddie Laker, there have been quite a few seismic shifts in the industry. There was when the computer reservation systems were introduced, and the arrival of the internet and low-cost airlines, all of which really shook the whole business up. And at each time, the demise of the travel agent was confidently predicted, and as this conversation proves, hasn't happened. I mean, there are obviously good things come out of every change, as well as bad things. I mean, if you were to look into the future 3 or 4 years with experience and wisdom and knowledge you've got, can you see is there anything that you can say, actually, that 2020 was an absolutely awful year, but this has come out of it, which is actually better? I mean, we've touched on a few of them, but is there anything we haven't covered that you think would be actually a good thing in retrospect?
I think we will all be more conscious of the effect that travel has on the environment. There will be a lot greater focus on sustainable travel, checking the green credentials of the resort you're going to, and making journeys not by air. In actual fact, I suspect that a lot of people will look more closely at rail travel to get to closer destinations.
And is that because of the kind of the clear skies we've got at the moment is an incredible reminder of the damage that we do on a daily basis normally?
Absolutely. And people, perhaps sad to say, do have fairly short memories. 9/11 caused a huge decrease in flying, but then a year later, you would never have noticed it.
If you look at the statistics for air travel for the last 30 years, I mean, 9/11 doesn't really make as much of a blip in it as you would imagine. It didn't actually also make it this huge blip in the stock market, which might be an encouraging thought for people looking at the economy. I mean, I know the fact that the economy is, every country in the world is likely to completely tank over the next year or so is a sort of given. But it's amazing how resilient industries individually and industry and the economy as a whole is. And it's just to be hoped that there'll be a better model, as you say, which will, lose some of the bad aspects of what went before and improve some of the good ones. And that
Absolutely.
will bounce back in a better way. That's the future we have to hope we have to hold on to, I suppose.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much.
We are very adaptable as human beings. So.
But remember that you always need to have an expert at hand in order to be able to explain the options to you. And that is why I very much hope that not only travel agents, but also other independent retailers who can offer advice like bookshops or butchers or whoever else are still survive in order to be able to bring
customer
personal
service.
One-to-one expertise, and as you say, to have somebody batting for you when you're at the other side of the world and there's a problem. It's great to know that there's someone who knows what they're talking about, who can help sort it out for you. So long may your business continue.
Yeah. So Veronica, how can people contact you if they want any advice on travelling?
Best ways are either by phone. I'm normally in splendid isolation on 01488 686858 between 10 and 2, Monday to Friday, or by email. Our email address is hung, HUNG, at fairwise.com.
Lovely.
And that's FAREWISE, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is indeed.
And you are located in the middle of Hungerford High Street, under the railway bridge, where people can hopefully visit you in person in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, thank you, Veronica, for keeping everyone safe and helping us plan what the future might hold in store for avid travellers. Oh, and you've got a travel quiz at the moment, haven't you?
We do indeed, yes.
So people can find out.
Penny Post and on Facebook, so anybody can have a look.
A few brain teasers in there, so help something to pass a bit of time during lockdown, and then win a prize for a local trip not a cruise, not on across the Atlantic, but on the roads of Hungerford. So where better to start if one is going to be doing staycations in one's hometown or one's home area, and something that one wouldn't maybe
totally different perspective.
Absolutely,
exactly.
Yes.
Take
exactly.
life at a slow pace. Lovely. Thank you so much, Veronica.
Thanks a lot.
Goodbye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.